Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll be covering another episode of Introduction to Insect Taxonomy and Identification. I believe this will be part 23, where we will be talking about the stick insects. But first, like and subscribe helps the channel out a lot, and if not, you'll turn into this bug-eyed stick insect. So first, let's go over where we've been before where we're going. We have talked about the Entonatha or the pseudo insects. We've talked about the Archaeonatha and the Zygentoma. These are the wingless, apterate, very, very primitive insects. We've talked about the Paleoptera, the mayflies, and the odonates, the dragonflies. These are the insects which cannot fold their wings behind their body, but they are the first winged insects. And now we're talking about the Neoptera, and these are what we've been talking about so far have been insects that can fold their wings behind their body, and these are also hemimetabolists. Hemimetabolists meaning that they only go through a partial metamorphosis, unlike holometabolous insects, which undergo a complete metamorphosis and go through like a pupation. So these insects, their immature stages, the nymphs, look like the adults, but just without wings. So we've talked about all these seen here so far, the Plecoptera through the Embryodina, except for the Phasmatodea. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. These are the stick insects, or sometimes called the leaf insects. And this group is sometimes also called the Phasmida. So it's either Phasmatodea, which is the name that I originally learned, or the Phasmida. Phasma meaning phantom in Greek, and it's because all of these insects are extremely hard to see in their natural environment. Or not all of them, but most of them are pretty hard to see. They're pretty cryptic. So order Phasmida, these are the walking sticks, the stick insects, the leaf insects. They have all sorts of names. Globally, there's about 3,000 species, but in the US and Canada, so North America north of Mexico, there's generally considered 10 genera containing 29 species. They're best known for their extreme forms of crypsis, so they're extremely good camouflage, either looking like sticks or twigs or leaves, or at least blending in with the leaves around them. They're mostly tropical and Asian, so there's not a ton of species in North America. They are herbivorous, all of them, on trees and shrubs. They lay eggs randomly, which is kind of an interesting characteristic of the Phasmida, and it is that they, unlike their relatives like the stick or like the mantids and the cockroaches and things like that, they don't lay eggs in clutches or ootheca or anything like that. They just kind of randomly shoot out eggs that look like seeds. So this is an example of what one of their eggs looks like. Very easy to mistake for a plant seed. So even their eggs are cryptic. So they're very, very hard to find in nature. They're usually, so the insects are usually in the trees or the shrubs, and the eggs are just kind of fired around randomly. They fall to the forest floor, and then they blend in with the leaf litter. Um, their wings are only sometimes present. Many of these species don't have wings, but when wings are present, sometimes they are large enough that they can fly, and when they're not large enough, they're frequently used in something called startle display. So they will suddenly kind of, if they are found by a predator, if their crypsis fails, they'll suddenly unfurl their wings. Their wings are usually brightly colored or have eye spots, and it's to scare off a predator. Um, the forewing, so that the startle display is with the underwing. It's a membranous flight wing, and the forewing is thickened into a tegmina, which is like a leathery upper wing. Think of something like a grasshopper. They are forewing, very, very hard and leathery, used for protection. They have a variety of chemical defenses. Some emit odors, some have a caustic spray that they can emit to scare off predators. Many of them are adapted to nocturnal living. And only a handful of them are pests. And unfortunately, the ones that have become pests, sometimes these are groups that are popular in the pet trade. A lot of people keep stick insects as pets, and when they escape captivity, they can become pests and invasive insects. There are 5 families present in North America and Canada. Um, like I said, there's only about 29 species. The Timematids are the most primitive. They're very small, squat-bodied, not very stick-like stick insects. And then you have the more traditional stick insects in the Phasmatidae, the Diapheromerids, the Heteronemiids, and the Pseudophasmatids, which are all more closely related. This is its own group. This is its own suborder, and then these are the Euphasmatodea, I believe is what they're called, and they're all more closely related. So we'll get right into them. Speaking of that bug-eyed stick insect that we were talking about earlier, stick insects generally have very large eyes. They are um, very visually oriented. They have chewing mouth parts because they tend to feed on very softer plant material. Unlike this guy, which this is an Australian stick insect, they're frequently their chewing mouth parts are kind of projected away from the body. They're usually very large. And the antennae are highly variable between groups, as is like the armature. So these spines and things that you see on the insect, uh, only some of the families are known for this armature. A lot of the families are very, very smooth. So let's get right into it. So the first group that we're going to talk about is the phasmatids. So these, as a general overview, are slender. They tend to have armature, although this one's a little different. They tend to be winged, and their antennae are of variable length. So this is Carassius morosus, which I believe is one of the few stick insects that can actually change its color. This family, the Phasmatidae, are called the winged walking sticks. There's 160 genera worldwide. They have a global distribution except for Antarctica. And in the United States and Canada, there are two genera, each with one species. One of the species is native, one of the species is invasive. The native species is Haplopus uh, scabicolus, which is only found in like the Florida Keys. And then this species here is an invasive species. This is the Indian walking stick. It is currently considered one of the few pest species in Southern California. I believe this was probably brought in with the pet trade and then escaped into the environment. Generally, this family is slender. Although they are capable of growing extremely large. This is, I believe, a baby one of these. Um, but this family is known for some of the largest stick insects. They can get over 30 centimeters long, so over a foot long. Wings are usually present. Sometimes those wings are extremely brightly colored, which is in contrast to their very dull colored bodies. And this is for that startle display. Uh, the body and legs of many of the adults of this family are spined or have little spicules on it for armature, for either defense from predators or to help them cling on to surfaces. The antennae are variables. Some are capable of producing chemical sprays as defense, and many of the leaf mimicking species are in this group. So when I talk about leaf insects, I'm talking about something like this, where instead of being flat and twig-like, they are more broadly built in order to look like foliage. They have a very bright green sort of coloration. So not all of them are this sort of dull twig-like color that we think of when we think of walking sticks. So that is the Phasmatidae. The next group are the pseudophasmatids. They tend to be have quite a thicker body than the phasmatids that we were just talking about. So you can see here they're much wider. There's actually two here. They're kind of blending in with each other, but there's one here. I think they're probably mating, and then one here. They tend to, as a general rule, this group has thicker bodies. They are winged. They tend to be striped or a little more colorful, and they tend to have shorter antennae. Um, so this as a group are called the striped walking sticks, the pseudophasmatids. There are 61 genera worldwide. There are 3 species in 2 genera in the U.S. Again, there's Anisomorpha, which are 2 species that are native, and then there's an invasive species, which is called Peru Phasma, which is from Peru. So this one here is the Anisomorpha ferruginea, and this is a native species in the United States. This one was photographed in Texas. The one that is invasive, Peruphasma schultei, is an invasive species again because of the pet trait. So you can kind of see a pattern forming here with the walking sticks. These tend to be kind of small to medium sized, 5 to 15 centimeters, so grow up to 6 inches long. They're not as slender, so they're more well built than the true phasmatids. So these are the pseudophasmatids. Their wings are usually large and brightly colored. They tend to have shorter antennae, so sometimes these are called the short-horned walking sticks. And you might be thinking, well, that doesn't look very short to me. This looks like a long antenna. When I say short, some stick insects have very, very short antennae, and we'll see one here coming up. But some stick insects have antennae that are longer than their bodies. So when we say long antennae, we mean really, really long antennae. And then when you see a description that's like shorter antennae, it can be from anywhere from like half body length to just little nubbins. These also can produce a number of chemical sprays or odors as defense, but they are mostly tropical, mostly Western Hemisphere. So this particular group you're going to find more in like Central and South America. But these are the pseudophasmatids. Pretty neat insects. Pretty easy to tell from their coloration and body structure that you're in this group. So the next group that we'll talk about are the Heteronemiids. These are the short-horned walking sticks, or the common walking sticks. These are probably the most stick-like of the stick insects, as you can see here. Parabacillus is the only species within the United States. There's 11 genera worldwide. Not only species, the only genus in the United States. There's only the one genus in North America, Parabacillus, which is what you see here. This is Parabacillus hesperus, so very, very stick-like. The greatest diversity of these is in South America, of the Heteronemiids. Again, they're kind of medium-sized, 5 to 20 centimeters long. They tend to be extremely slender, extremely stick-like. Very, very dull coloration, easy to mistake for a twig if this was on a tree. They usually have no wings, and they usually have really long antennae, except for the Parabacillus, which are in the United States. And if you look here, you can see these tiny little antennae. So, and this is unique to this group, to the Parabacillus. Most of this group have extremely long body length antennae. So this is kind of a confusing example because it's the only one in kind of in the North America area, north of Mexico, that is. It's worth talking about, but it doesn't have the same features as the rest of the group. So the features of the group are slender, wingless, very, very twig-like, long antennae. So don't get too hung up on the antennae here. So normally this group has antennae that are longer than the body, except for this guy. They're mostly nocturnal, and they don't have as many non-crypsis defenses. So they've kind of gone all in on looking like a stick. They don't generally produce as many chemical defenses. So if they are startled by a predator, their go-to behavior is to drop off the tree or shrub that they're on, and then fall to the forest floor and try to blend in with the sticks and leaves down there. Pretty neat, though. The next group are the Diapheromerids. And the Diapheromerids as a group are elongate, wingless, they have minimal body adornments, and they have really, really long antennae. So this is what I mean by long antennae. This antenna, if you were to put it back, would probably reach to almost the tip of the abdomen. There are 130 genera worldwide. In the US and Canada, there are 6 genera and 19 species. These grow very long, usually up to 8 inches, so like 20 centimeters-ish. They have very, very simple bodies, generally unadorned. Most members are wingless. Majority of them, of these wingless members, live in the temperate zones of the world. But if you find these in the tropics, they generally have wings. Those species tend to have wings. And then again, these very, very long antennae. They are similar to the Heteronemiids, and so they can be a little confusing with them. And then finally, we have the Timematids, which are a very strange group. These are the leaf litter stick insects, and they don't really look like sticks, as you can tell. And I have a couple pictures here. This one Again, they're very strange. The majority of them are found in the Western United States or Western North America. They tend to be short. They tend to be squat bodied. They are wingless and they generally have very short antennae. So these are the leaf litter insects. There's only one genus in North America, Timema. Uh, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Timema. But there's 21 species in North America, which is kind of crazy. Or up to 20, oh, sorry, 21 species globally. Um, there's up to 11 or 12 species in North America. I couldn't get an exact number. I saw very variable estimates. There seems to be a couple of these species that seem to be able to hybridize, so I'm not entirely sure of the exact estimate of species. They're frequently found close to the ground. They tend to be pretty limited in their diversity. If you go back to this clade, they're the more primitive of the groups. So there's not a ton of speciation in this group. They tend to either be green, brown, or gray, and it's to blend in with dead leaves. They tend to be wingless. They're primarily nocturnal. They have very few defenses, and they're primarily found in the western U.S. So if you're looking for these, you're going to actually look kind of in the leaf litter, not on the trees. So those are all of the families in North America. But I just wanted to point out some of the highly variable body structure of the stick insects. They're not all like, uh, you know, the Diapheromera or the Parabacillus, where these are the ones that I kind of saw all the time growing up. Um, but they're not all like that. Especially in the more tropical areas, you get kind of these crazy looking uh, wide-bodied stick insects. Like the Australian stick insects are crazy looking. They have tons of armature. They have these enormous eyes, and they tend to do this waggly dance when they walk around. So they tend to be big. They can be like 8 inches long, and they are kind of an imposing group of insects. And then of course you have the leaf insects, which I've never seen these in the wild, unfortunately, but I would be really interested in them. Uh, but that is all I wanted to talk about with the Phasmatids or Phasmatodea. Next time, we are probably going to get into the Orthoptera, which are starting down here, the Orthoptera and the Dermaptera and Zooptera. The Orthoptera are going to be the crickets, the grasshoppers, and the katydids, which is going to be a very, very large group. The Dermaptera and the Zooptera will be relatively fast and small, but when we get into the Orthoptera, this may take multiple videos to cover. And until then, I'll talk to you guys later.